So, welcome to the next edition of the Rare Business Podcast. With me today, I have Sanish Mondkar, who is the Chief Product Officer of Ariba. Hi, Sanish. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you.
So, Sanish, for the benefit of our listeners and readers, can you tell us a little bit about you and a bit about the work that you do?
Sure. As you mentioned, I'm the Chief Product Officer of Ariba, and so as a part of this role, I oversee all products, innovations, and operations for Ariba. Ariba has been in business for more than 15 years now. We solve the problem of business to business procurement,
Mm-hmm.
and this is basically how businesses buy and sell from each other, as well as manage their cash and their supply chain. And that's we build software that automates these problems for our customers. So that's my role, and as the chief product officer, and that's what Ariba does.
Okay. Now, the thing that I'm really interested in and what I really sort of try and explore on the blog is that I'm interested in developments in sort of B2B customer experience, as it doesn't really seem to get as much attention as many of the developments we see in sort of the B2C arena. So I'd be interested
Yeah,
to I'd
yeah.
be interested to know how you've been helping some of your B2B clients develop their own CX and kind of what lessons you've learned from B2C.
Yeah, it's a good observation. Firstly, the interest level, usually the focus of media and others is more on the B2C side, because that is something we all in our personal lives see firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
But on the B2B side, there has been a lot of, in my mind, pretty major paradigm shifting changes that are occurring right now, and these changes will definitely get the experience equation on the B2B side to be far greater or better than what it used to be, maybe even just a few years back. And there are many reasons for that we can talk about, but it definitely is changing a lot.
I mean, is there any sort of specific kind of lessons that you've kind of seen and you've been able to incorporate from the B2C sort of scene that you've started to use in your own sort of technology and in particularly in around sort of purchasing kind of changes in purchasing behavior and what you've kind of done to try and almost capitalize on that?
Yeah, there are a couple of things there. Firstly, a lot of the decisions today are data driven.
Uh huh.
So there's an expectation of the user to have not just the software help with this process automation or efficiency, but also now software has an opportunity to actually help you make the right decisions. In other words, enterprise software is getting more intelligent, and the intelligence comes from access to data and being able to harvest this data to help guide a user make better decisions.
Okay.
As an example of that is one of the things that we provide for our customers is ability to source your suppliers and run auction events and things like that. And
Okay.
that is pure business process automation. But now, on top of that, we are adding capabilities like, well, answering questions like when is a good time to source? When do you actually go about trying to find new suppliers for certain commodities? Which commodities should you attack first? Which ones later? So there is a decision-making layer which is on top of your process automation, which is the traditional role of enterprise software. That's one area where you see a lot of change.
Okay.
The other area where you see a lot of change is just the sheer experience of how you engage with end users, even in context of enterprise applications.
Mm-hmm.
So enterprise applications, as we all know, traditionally they're not being known for their great user experience, how they drive engagement with the users, how they create user delight. These are not the words that you would use to describe enterprise software in the past. Today's users, that they absolutely have that expectation that when they walk into their offices and they start using whatever enterprise and desktop applications that they use at work, those applications should basically have the same degree of user experience that they are used to when they are doing other things in their personal lives, whether it's banking, whether it's shopping on Amazon, whether it is Facebook and social networks and all of that stuff.
Okay.
So that is a very important part. And today, especially with the millennial generation, this year becoming the largest generational user group in North American workforce today in 2015, that expectation is not just a matter of a soft choice, but it's actually a requirement. They would work for a company that actually meets those expectations, and this becomes a critical job satisfaction driver versus being forced to use an archaic old application that just does not seem like the kind of things that they would prefer to use.
Okay.
So these are some pretty important shifts that are happening right now, and as and many of our customers and the CIOs and chief procurement officers, they actually see this shift happening in their workforce,
Right.
and they also see the challenge that they have a lot of old legacy applications that have been running in their workforce for many years, and how do you bring in this new wave of innovations that will satisfy their users and make them more productive and drive adoption of their enterprise applications? How can they do all of this while still maintaining the business continuity that they're focused on?
Okay. And is that kind of one of the primary reasons why correct me if I'm wrong here, but is that why one of the primary reasons why you've gone sort of mobile first with some of your applications?
Yes, yes, that's one of the primary reasons, and also we like to call it as mobile complementary versus mobile first. And let me explain the difference.
Okay.
For us, it's about not just about what makes it's not just about do everything on their mobile devices first. It's about, well, there are certain things that make sense on that form factor, a device of that form factor. There's certain other things that make sense on a larger screen, like like your laptop or your desktop or even your iPad.
Sure.
So we differentiate things based on what makes sense where. But more importantly, we want these devices to work seamlessly with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, one of the use cases that we have in our applications is for a user to be able to create invoices based on the orders that they receive. This is on the supplier side.
Yeah.
And some invoices may be really easy to create one click because the order is pretty simple, like 2 line items.
Yeah.
Some enterprise complex orders may have like 3,000 line items.
Right.
You don't want someone to even attempt creating a 3,000 line item invoice on a cell phone while walking on the street.
No.
Rather, you would want to actually give that person ability to mark that invoice for creation or review later when they are back at their desktop.
Right.
So that's an example of an interaction where you can still use your cell phone to do things. These are like fast twitch actions. So to do things like mark it or pin it or attach a reminder to yourself or annotate it in certain ways, that still drives certain degree of productivity, but leaves the actual task to be done when you're working on the device with the right form factor for that task.
So am I right in saying, amongst what you were saying there, you talked about there's a what you would call like a pinning feature in your app, like pinning stuff when you get on, like you get when you use Instagram or Pinterest or something. Is that right?
Yes, that is similar to the concept that we're talking about, though of course we are talking about here pinning enterprise documents and actions so that you can actually look at them later. Yes.
Yeah, no, I think it's fascinating in terms of you take kind of something which is familiar in the business to consumer sort of space and a feature that people are familiar with, and then integrate it into a B2B enterprise application. And because I guess that for will facilitate the uptake and use and adoption of your application as well.
Absolutely. And in fact, even choosing the word like pinning actually is designed to create that sense of familiarity to the user that, oh, wow, this is how it works. And you don't need a help manual to actually educate them on how this feature works. They just intuitively know it because they have been using it in their personal lives.
Okay. And can tell us, I mean, are there other sort of, if you like, consumer learned behaviors like pinning, as it were, that you're using in your application to help with adoption? I mean, is there other things that you use that are crossing those crossing the domains, as it were?
Absolutely. In fact, one of the biggest ones is the notion of learning. Okay.
Right.
And let me explain that a little bit. One of the things in enterprise applications is, of course, there is a lot of it is sort of, some sort of a process that is being automated using an application. That's kind of the nature of enterprise apps. Now, traditionally, a lot of these processes and the rules and the policies and all that stuff regarding that process, there were, help manuals or help guides, all this type of material that was made available to the user. In addition to that, there is usually access to a help desk or a customer support service where end users can call and ask questions about, hey, how does this work? What do I do? What does this field mean? Which ID do I need to stick in there so that the reconciliation of, as an example, reconciliation of invoice to purchase orders will work, all that stuff, right? So there is a lot of support structure around an enterprise application to help not only educate the employees who will use it, but also guide them to do the right thing and make sure that they're ultimately productive in whatever they're trying to do.
Okay.
Now, those ways of educating and engaging with the users via customer support, via phone call, via help manuals and things like that. If you think about it, all those methods are getting obsolete. I mean, when you and I had to research something today or learn something today, we don't call somebody and learn from a customer support rep. We don't read up manuals before filling up a form online. So today's methods of learning are more data and search centric. For example, I should be able to go to Google and search, and I do my own research.
Sure.
I should be able to learn from social communities. I should be able to go and ask a question in a social community, and if my peers are in that community, whether it's closed or open, it doesn't matter. But if my peers are in that community, then I have a high degree of credibility and validity that I derive from the answer. So the methods of learning are fundamentally changing, and learning is such an important aspect of any enterprise application that this is essentially a big problem statement for all enterprise applications. How do you ensure that the expectation changes for learning, especially with the millennial generation, who's now, as I mentioned earlier, the largest generational workforce, who will not call customer support, who will not read manuals? How do we ensure that generation learns in a manner that they prefer and they expect and they actually would be most productive with?
Sure.
That is fundamentally changing how we think about enterprise applications here at Ariba. So what we are doing now is, in context of the enterprise applications, while you're in your app, while you're doing some complex tasks, whether it might be working on a contract, creating an invoice, working with purchase orders, whatever Ariba enterprise applications let you do. Within the application in context, you have access to a community of peers, because we are in the cloud, so we can actually connect you to other people like you who are similar jobs, who got similar, who use the application in similar ways. We connect you to targeted content, so other people have asked questions about things like what you're doing right now, and some other people may answer or you may answer. There are there's access to chat, not just with Ariba customer support, but also with others. So we bring the community of peers, targeted content, and access to professional help from Ariba, all within the context of your enterprise application. And it is highly targeted, highly relevant because as you go from one task to the other task, of course, all this stuff should change and does change. So when you go to a different task, there likely be different content. There also may be different community peers who will appear over there in terms of ready to engage.
Okay.
So our initial, and this is very early in the rollout right now because there is nothing like this in the enterprise application world out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are very focused on making sure we are fine-tuning and tweaking the experience and driving up engagement and making sure that the community access doesn't become too intrusive or defocusing from the main task at hand.
Okay.
But at the same time, it actually helps and complements and augments the experience.
Okay.
So that is, in my mind, an example of how we bring the notion of how you learn today in the world of connected web and online knowledge sources to a world where the notion of learning is very important because these are formal, specialized tasks that you're performing in the enterprise application and merge these two worlds.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. That's it was a long answer to a long question, so thank you. But can you give me an example of a company that's been an early adopter of this type of approach and sort of the benefits that they're seeing?
Yeah, so we have rolled this out on one of our solutions is the Ariba Business Network,
right?
Which is essentially the online community of buyers and sellers. And so far, we have rolled it out to some portion of our suppliers.
Mm-hmm.
So there are about 200 suppliers who have actually who we have rolled this out as a part of phase one.
Okay.
And the benefits of this, I mean, this is again all data driven for us. So we closely monitor, how they access the questions, the content, how many answers they serve, as well as read and consume, and so on and so forth. So the biggest benefit we have seen is that we have been able to cut their incoming inquiries into Ariba customer support via the traditional phone call by about a half already, because we are able to basically deflect a lot of their questions from customer support back to the community and have either get them to the right content so that they can read it in context, or they can ask the question from someone else and someone else answers.
Okay.
So just in the very early phase, we've been able to basically reduce incoming inquiries by half.
Excellent. Well, I mean that's a significant kind of benefit in of itself, and so that's
absolutely,
that's brilliant. Sanish, that's fascinating. I mean, and it sounds like you are so early days in this type of development of this type of application, but it sounds really interesting, and how you are learning from the B2C sort of domain, and how you're applying lessons from sort of consumer behavior, and that, if you like, our own personal kind of behavior in our personal lives into the enterprise application kind of zone, particularly when it comes to things like supply chain management and procurement and things. So that's fascinating, and I think that's and really, really interesting. So congratulate you on that. But I mean,
thank you.
And I'm sure our kind of readers and listeners will be really interested. I mean, but I'm just kind of conscious of time kind of here. I mean, is there anything else that you'd like to add that we've kind of missed out before I ask you my final question?
No, the only thing I'd like to add is that this whole user experience challenge today of engaging the users in the right model, using the devices of their preference, making sure there's learning and educating and teaching incorporated in the user experience itself, making sure the aesthetics, the design, all these things are delightful and engaging. All of these problems today are large problems for enterprise applications. And I haven't seen a lot of thought leadership coming from large enterprises out there, but this is something that we absolutely need to solve in order to maintain the engagement and the adoption levels that is needed for productive usage of enterprise applications going forward.
Fantastic. That's fascinating. So, Sanish, that leads me to my final question, and that is this, and this question I always ask at the end of my podcast interviews. And the question is this: is there anything that you would like to shamelessly plug?
Yes, of course, and I would never miss such an opportunity. What I would like to, well, as you say, shamelessly plug is the at Ariba we call this total user experience.
Uh-huh.
And total user experience for us is three pillars. One is we call it work anywhere, which is all about bring any device and be productive on any device in a way that's appropriate to that device, but still have all these devices work seamlessly with each other, as we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second pillar is learn anywhere, which is all about the learning and the in-context learning, access to community, your peers, all that stuff within the context of the enterprise application in a very relevant manner to every task that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And both of these pillars are based on the foundation of the third pillar, which is modern user experience principles. This is everything from design aesthetics. Today's paradigm is flat design, all that stuff. When you bring all the three pillars together, we call that total user experience. And I really would like to promote this notion of total user experience because it's not just about UI design. It's not just about mobile first or mobile access. It is also about learning and how do you, at the end of the day, make your end users productive in context of enterprise applications. So would love to have more visibility and more promotion of this notion called total user experience.
That's fantastic. Well, Sanish, I think that we'll be able to do a bit of a job for you on that with this podcast interview once we get it all edited up and published and things, and we'll make sure we give total user experience a big shout out when it all goes live. But what I want to say is just thank you for your time and your insight today. That's been splendid.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.